Alright guys, hope you're doing well, hope you're all keeping safe. Now I've been thinking of topics to cover whilst we wait for the new content coming towards the end of this year and for Heartlands to drop. Now one thing we know is that we are getting a new game mode. Details of what that mode is, the rewards and all of that kind of stuff is unknown at this point. And in a previous video I did talk about what I think we might get, but today I wanted to talk about KENLY College and the Summit, mainly because these are the only game modes that we can examine for this topic. The question is then, the topic or the theme for this video is, what do the devs need to learn from KENLY College and the Summit to ensure we get an awesome new game mode? I'm almost at 50k subs guys, so please subscribe if you do enjoy my content and you don't want to miss any of my videos. And with that said, let's begin. I'm going to start this off with a pretty brave statement, but I think it's true. So when KENLY College first was announced, I think it's safe to assume that many people, including myself, were excited to see what it had to offer. I mean, this was basically the first game mode the Division 2 had, and with the Division having so many good game modes, you know, survival and all of that sort of resistance, all of that sort of stuff, it's easy to see why the expectations were quite high. I remember when, I believe I may have streamed it, and my expectations were pretty high for it. I have to admit, when I first started playing through KENLY College and I saw that there were puzzles involved, my immediate reaction was, oh, this is pretty cool. Not because I like puzzles in games, as I generally don't, but it was something we didn't really have before in the Division at all. It was absolutely the honeymoon phase that made me think it's cool, because it quickly became very, very annoying, something that I wish they never included at all. Now, I'm generally okay with puzzles in games, but it depends on where they're being used. I'm playing Elder Scrolls Online at the moment. There's quite a lot of puzzles in here. They're quite frustrating, but it's part of the story mode, so that's fine. When you include them in story missions, it's okay. If you include them in the raid, like what's being used in the raid for the Division, again, they're totally fine there. But when it comes to, you know, a replayable game mode, a mode that you want to go through quickly and have fun and get good loot, then you don't really want puzzles involved in that. So it kind of didn't work with KENLY College, and I hope they don't include any kind of puzzles within this new game mode. The other thing the devs have to not do is release this game mode with the major content update and it not be complete. Now, I think this is probably the most likely out of all of the stuff I'm going to talk about, just because of the experience of how they've done this stuff before. They did it with the Summit, they did it with KENLY. For the most part, all of their game modes come out and they're not complete. KENLY College, I think it was meant to have launched with a mastery system, which is kind of like a time trial system that based your rewards on how fast you're able to complete it. Very common system used in a lot of other games, but KENLY didn't release for this. Not that there's something that I thought made KENLY any better, because actually I didn't. It didn't really... That sort of thing for me is not something I enjoy, and for the most part I don't think anyone really cared about the mastery system. But game modes should be releasing complete. If you say it's going to have this, it should have it. The Summit likewise, unless it was the devs' intention for it to look more like a warehouse than a skyscraper, then you could easily just look at that and say, well, it wasn't complete. Now, the devs did add more things to the skyscraper mode over time, but what that says to me is actually it wasn't complete at launch. And you've only got to go back and see how the Summit launched to see that it wasn't complete, and the amount of changes they made to the Summit over time just shows you how incomplete that game mode is. Now, that's not me saying that if they release a game mode that they shouldn't make it better if they need to, or add stuff in, but it needs to be a complete experience. And skyscraper, even just on what it looked like, it didn't look anything like a skyscraper, and it looked like it was kind of rushed out. I don't know that for sure. Like I said, it might have been that's what the devs wanted to go for. We never really had any feedback on that. I don't think I've ever heard Massive say that was their intention, because I think they've actually said previously that making the inside look better is something that they did want to do, but they obviously are not going to now. So it was just incomplete. KENLY was incomplete. We do not want another incomplete game mode, please. Massive have said this new game mode will be somewhat new to the franchise, something we've never seen before. Now, if that's the case, I do hope they innovate more on the activities within the game mode. Something I think that KENLY and the Summit didn't really do, and was actually one of the main reasons why both game modes were pretty boring. The summit got better, but Kenley College for the most part was just very, very boring, mainly because of this reason. Now, it would just be kind of a case of, stand in this circle and defeat the waves of enemies, protect this hostage, etc. The same old stuff. The summit didn't start off with a whole lot, but it's done a much better job over time at making activities within the game mode a little bit more unique. Stuff that we've not really seen that much before, or not at all. But the issue with the summit has always been the 100 levels. On paper, it kind of sounds cool. You're fighting up this tower. I remember when we heard about the summit, and I was like, this sounds amazing. It reminds me of that. I can't remember what the film is, but that film where the guy kind of just fights his way up the tower. It just sounded cool. But even if you have 20 different activities, and I think there may even be about 20 to 25 at the moment in the summit, that means on average, you're going to see the same activity 5 times through a whole run. And that quickly becomes boring, right? I think Massive need to really innovate with this new mode. Give us stuff we've not seen before at all. And don't have a game mode that takes hours to run through like the summit. We want a game mode that's fast, it's fun, and it has unique gameplay. And I think that's what most people want. If you want to include things in there that could speed up or slow down the mode as a preference, that's fine, I guess. But I think ultimately what we don't want is a game mode where it takes you 3 hours to run through it. The summit's a very long game mode. You could look at something like a Survival from the Division and say, well, that took long. But actually, if you wanted to get through it, it didn't take long at all. It's just that if you wanted to extend that for whatever reason, you could do that. You look at something like Resistance, again, that could be quite short. It could be long as well. But these were all kind of replayable game modes because they were unique. They were unique to the franchise. So I would like to see them really innovate on this game mode and just give us something completely different, something new, and something fun. The last thing, and in many ways the most important of all, is the loot. So in Kenley College, you could get the Diamondback exotic rifle once you had completed all areas, and you then went to the chapel to collect it. Annoyingly, it was time-gated, if I remember correctly, and that's something they cannot do with any loot in this new game mode. I don't think anyone likes time-gated loot. Once you get the Diamondback, well, there was no reason to ever play Kenley College again. I think I got the Diamondback within a couple of weeks of Kenley coming out. I can't remember too much, but I feel like I got the Diamondback in the first week. I'm not sure what happened with that, but I got it as early as you possibly could, basically, and I've never been back to Kenley College again. For a lot of the reasons I'm going to talk about, obviously, but mainly because of the loot, really. Now, there's a mixture of things in this video that I've talked about which would explain why I wouldn't want to go back and do Kenley College. But ultimately, any new mode has to have loot worth chasing. The summit had 2 exotics tied to it, I believe, in the Capacitor and Ridgeways, along with some vanity stuff from defeating the Hunter on floor 100. Ridgeways is a bit of a pain to get, RNG based, but it's fine. I'm okay with it. The Capacitor was really easy to get. So basically, you didn't have to really work to get the Capacitor. So in kind of my opinion, if you want a mode that people are going to keep farming for gear, then you want something that's hard to get. So that's why I think Ridgeways works better than the Capacitor in that sense, although I love the Capacitor, it's great. The Summit was better than Kenley College for many reasons, including the loot, but still it didn't really have anything worth chasing once you did floor 100 and you got the Capacitor. Eventually they added commendations, which was great for a small portion of the community, but if you're someone like me, I don't really care about accommodations. What I want is I want loot, I want gear, I want power. And like I said, outside of the 2 exotics, there was nothing else really. That was it. And it was a huge time commitment as well. Like I said, it's not like you could run through this game mode, 20 minutes it would take you and it was kind of unique every single time. It wasn't. It was a very long process. So there's that as well. Massive must make sure the loot is worth the chase. We have to have the carrot on the stick. Otherwise, it doesn't matter how good the game mode is, how good it looks or whatever. People will simply play a couple of times, they're going to dip out. This is one of the reasons why people don't really go into the Dark Zone as much anymore. Aside from the fact that the Dark Zone is PvP in this game is generally bad. It's just that the Dark Zone doesn't offer any unique rewards worth going in there to have a bad time over. You know, that's just the long and short of it. That's the reason why I don't go in there, because there's really nothing in there that I'm going to get that's unique enough for me to be, you know, going in there and having a bad time. So ultimately what we don't want is a game mode that makes you feel like you're wasting your time, and the way they do that is by making sure there's good loot tied to it. We want loot that's weapons, we want gear, we want unique items that you can't get anywhere else. I'm a big fan of items and gear and whatever that's tied to specific modes and stuff like that. I'm a big fan of that. I think it incentivizes people to go and do those activities, so I'm cool with that. And on top of that, we want the vanity as well. What we don't want is one vanity item, one weapon and one piece of gear, right? That would just be bad. We want lots of stuff. But that's it, guys. Thanks very much for watching. Hopefully you did enjoy this one. I'm pretty sure that most of you guys agree with me on this one, and I'm also pretty sure that a lot of you will be skeptical about what this new game mode is going to be. I'm one of those people, based on the game modes that we've had in this game. If I based it on the Division, then no, I'd actually be pretty hyped for it. But that was a while back. The last two game modes, not really been that great in my opinion. They've been better, as in the Summit's been better than KENLY, but that's it. Thanks for watching. Until the next one, epic out.